Hi, this is Elliot and Diane Jackson. The source has asked us to come to you this evening to read some portions of the Sapiential Discourses Universal Wisdom, Book 1 and Book 2. I will be reading a portion from the chapter The Second Coming that was channeled or automatically typed from the Spirit of Yeshua or Jesus through me. Diane will be reading a portion from the Sapiential Discourses Universal Wisdom, Book 2, from the chapter The Magdalene, sent from her spirit through me and automatically typed. We wish for each of you who view this video to think about the words that are being spoken and that were sent, because we have been filled with many lies and misconceptions that have kept us all in fear. These are the words of Yeshua or Jesus. Prior to my being arrested, detained, and put on trial, I prayed and meditated. Yes, I prayed and meditated in that place called Gethsemane for hours. I went there, as I often did, for peace, solitude, and time with the universe in meditation. It was there that the full scope of my humanity played out. It played out in visions of myself as a little boy who would miss his mother's arms and never again be able to touch her, or my beloved Mary, my wife, in human form. It was there that I experienced what many of you would later term the 5 states of grief. Be it known that I felt all of them in an instant, in a moment, and forever. I cried, wept, and sweated blood. Yet I tell you this, my beloved ones. I was in fear and shame the whole time. I felt the shame that I would be bringing on my mother to have a son who forever, or at least for a time, would be known to have been killed as a criminal for essentially not being able to contain his speech. I felt the shame I was about to place on my wife and my children, Sarah and Judah. I wondered and envisioned what their lives would be like without me. I ask you not to allow the painted pictures of me being some frail, superhuman freak to stick with you. I was a man, a strong man, a father, a husband, and a son. I was stepping into infamy as far as I was concerned. It's important for you to realize that. During and after the trials or meeting with the Sanhedrin, I was spat upon, slapped, cut, and gouged. I was sent to Pontius Pilate. He wasn't a bad man. There is no good or bad. He was under pressure, as was I. He was under pressure from his wife not to do anything to me. He was under pressure from the Romans, from the Jewish leaders. You should and must now and forever understand that the Jewish people have been held for far too long responsible for something that was forced upon them. They should and must be forgiven for what you have been told they did to me. The universe, God, or all there is, was, and ever shall be, forgave them long ago, as should all of you now. They had mistaken judgments, and they felt that they were doing right. I was beaten, flogged, in front of my wife, mother, and friends. I was half dead already when I was nailed to the torture stake. Look it up. You really don't wish to know the full extent of it all. The movies you see are mild in comparison. I was mocked, beaten more, beaten again and again, and sent to others, including Herod, a real card in your terms. I wanted to hate him, but the Spirit in me knew that he too had not a choice in the matter. He was under the influence of lower vibrations that bring about greed and lust for power, as they do about all the sons and daughters of God. Then I was taken to Golgotha. Yes, it was all real and more painful than human words can say. The guards knew that after the flogging I had experienced, the lacerations and the lack of blood in my body that had been placed upon me, I was in shock. Yes, I was made to carry the long stick, or cross as you call it. After I was hung for what you understood for 6 or more hours, I could feel the nails tearing through my wrists. Don't believe the stories about nails in the hands. The hands would have torn as paper. No, it was the wrists, then nailed through the feet. I couldn't feel anything really after being beaten and flogged. They tried to drug me, to give me a mixture of hemlock and other drugs. I was poked many times in the side with a spear, which is really what did it, what really brought about my death. When I transpired, the universe was sad. It became dark around the locale, and there was a display of grief in the air, in the sky. But there's always when a travesty has been committed upon your earth. I did ask Father and Mother, Abba, Yuma, to forgive them. They knew not what they did. Not because I was special, but because they did not understand that the love of God is for all. They, the ones that did this to me, were as dumb. They made choices to make themselves appear better in the eyes of others. I also told my wife from where I hung that I loved her and asked her to lovingly care for our children. I watched as she watched me die. My mother too. The pain in their faces, it was more hurtful to my being than all the floggings and beatings, the slapping or the punching could or would have ever been. My last recollections were of them, the 2 women I loved the most. These 2 loving spirits that accepted me totally as their God in the face of all my mistakes and decisions. Now Diane is going to read about the pain of Mary Magdalene from Book 2.
You see, I longed to see his face, to kiss his lips, to hold his hand, to lay my head upon his chest. I cursed the all. Why him? Why him? Why him? I even thought it should have been me. But we knew it was coming. We, he and I, understood that during our time, if we continued to speak the truth about the nature of God, of Source, they, the ones in power, would do everything within that power to silence us. And so it was. He was gone. I could no longer look into his eyes. I could no longer be comforted by him during those times when lower vibrations would come to me in dreams, informing me of his death, of my time that would be coming to be spent in darkness and isolation. I would wake up trembling and crying, and he, my love, would tell me all would be well. Yet in my mind now, it was not well at all. After they killed him, I had to spend much time in prayer and meditation. If I could not have him by my side, what was the reason left for living? It was at this time that I remember him telling me, "Remember the little children. They are the salvation of our world." I did not know what to do. What do you do? What do you do when you have done all you can to empower yourself and others, and they spit in your face, whip you, stone you, lance you, and then nail you to a stake? The flagellation, I wanted to kill them all, but my husband taught us to love and accept all. It took me a long time to receive those words from him, and this was before they did this to my love. Even though I believed what he said, I did believe that all is one. But this brutality on my love was just too much. Now I had no husband, my children had no father, and my mother-in-law had no son. What do you do? What could I do? Nothing. Tears, rivers of tears, mountains of pain, oceans of tears I cried, yet never in her presence. I always cried away from the sight of my husband's mother. I refused to cry in front of her. She needed for me to be strong. He asked me, beseeched me, to be strong for her, for him. I remember her face as they beat him, as we watched, she and I. I remember her face as they dragged him and nailed through his skin. I remember all the blood of the one I loved, running in trails through the dirt. All the blood coming from him, the one I loved, all the blood. Why do you think that during the time that you have named Easter, so many tears flow on your earth? I will tell you. The very collected spirit of all there is cries for him and all the others who, through lower vibrations influencing the encasements of men and women on earth, have experienced such travesties carried out on their others, causing us to do these things to one another. I remember my husband's mother's face as we cleaned his body, preparing it with spices and wrapping it, thus anointing it for burial. I remember her silence, her strength. In a way, I became envious of her, for she knew him longer than I.
We have been asked by Source to ask each of you that view this video once again to think about these words, because these are the true words of Yeshua Jesus and Mary Magdalene, his wife. Have a good day.